I did it. Don't know what the official time was, but definitely a PR. That's right, I'm officially a marathoner for a second time. Now that I have some distance from the race, I'm ready to break it all down for you. And for those that just want to know whether I accomplished my goal of running under 4 hours, I'll tell you up front that no, I did not. I was close, really close, but for the too long didn't read version, check out the race video I made here. For those that are interested in the whole story, from getting to the race, the expo, race morning, and my thoughts post-race, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. I'd be super grateful if you did. All right, after what feels like months, in fact 6 months of thinking about it, the Wineglass Marathon is tomorrow morning. It is Saturday, October 4th. I am somewhere in Pennsylvania on my way up to New York for the marathon. I stopped at a gas station to get gas, go to the bathroom, get something to drink, and now I'm about to get back on the road. But how am I feeling ahead of the marathon? Well, unfortunately, I'm not 100%. I've had a couple setbacks this week, totally out of my control, just weird little things that happen. I'll tell you about those on the drive. But for now, I am just going to try to enjoy as much as I can. I'm solo road tripping the 5 hours to New York, so I'm going to try to enjoy that and listen to music, listen to podcasts, and just try to get my head in the right space for running tomorrow. So come join me on the ride, and I will talk through everything going on in my head as we drive up to the Corning Museum of Glass for the Wineglass Marathon Expo, pick up my bib, and then get some rest before the marathon in the morning. All right, back in the car, driving to Corning, New York. I've got about 2 hours and 13 minutes until I arrive. Okay, back to me for a minute. Recording while I was driving seemed like a good idea at the time, but for some reason, I went on and on and on and never really getting to any salient point. And also, the audio is not great, so while I speed through this part, basically all you need to know is that leading into the race, I was one, not feeling 100%. I had some sort of small residual cold in the week leading up to the race, and two, I had sustained a very minor and stupid injury 2 days before the race. I slipped in the grocery store on a spilled bottle of seltzer. Yes, it's as dumb as it sounds, and aggravated my left foot. Thankfully, it didn't lead to anything major preventing me from racing, but I absolutely for sure let myself get worked up about it. And yes, it appears I'm still going on and on, so let's just get past that and get to the part where I arrive in Corning. I have made it to New York, and I'm just getting off the interstate now, heading to the Corning Museum of Glass. I actually have no idea where to go once I get here, but I have been in the museum before, and yes, if you're wondering, it is a museum dedicated to the history and production of glass. It's actually quite fascinating. So I am going to try to figure out where I'm going and then head into the expo. The parking lot for the museum is a little ways away from the entrance, so after parking and trying to figure out where to go, I ended up following other people who seem to know where they're going, and I think I made it to the right place, because there we go. And once I got into the museum, I proceeded through the gift shop and came upon a ridiculously long line where now it appears I'm going to go wait in a very long line to pick up my bib, I guess. Awesome. I waited for a not insignificant amount of time in the winding line, followed the signs into a small auditorium/conference space, and finally got to the full marathon bib pickup.
All right, and then that's yours. Pins will be in your glass.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Have a good one.
You too.
I will say that the expo was generally pretty well organized. I kind of wish things had moved a bit faster, but it could have just been the time I was able to actually get to the expo. The volunteers were super helpful and friendly, and we got to collect all of our stuff for the race at once, including the race bib, a super nice quarter zip, a commemorative stemless wine glass, and a mini bottle of sparkling wine. Once I had my stuff, I briefly peeked around the booths set up at the expo before heading back through the gift shop, where I stopped for a minute to watch a cool Rube Goldberg-like machine moving around Corning Museum of Glass souvenir glass balls before I made it back outside. Okay, that was absolutely wild. Feels like everybody and their brother waited until the last minute to get their bib, but I have my bib here, number 896, obviously my favorite number, so that's pretty cool. I'm gonna go to church now, then I'm going to where I'm staying for the night, eat some dinner, get some rest. I got back to my car, zipped over to the local Catholic church for Mass, and then drove the hour to Penyan where I was staying for the night. Once I got to Penyan, I got my stuff inside before making a carb-heavy dinner. It is 7:45, night before the marathon. Marathon starts in 12 hours and 30 minutes. I am eating my dinner right now. I've got a full plate of carbs, followed by a side of more carbs. I put this piece of bread in a bowl for some reason. Yeah, I'm gonna eat my dinner. I'm gonna take a shower. I'm gonna get my stuff ready for tomorrow. I'm gonna try to sleep. I'm gonna do my best. I feel really tired. Today was a really long day. I was in the car for, a long time, and then picked up the bib and then went to church and then had to drive here where I'm staying, which is my wife's uncle's house on Keuka Lake. Beautiful place. So yeah, I'm gonna enjoy my dinner, and then I'm going to record one more thing before bed. Before my first marathon, I recorded a video the night before, just sort of spilling my feelings and thoughts, and I thought it'd be fun to do that again. So I'm gonna try that after I take a shower tonight and get all my stuff together. So enjoy dinner first, and then on to the next thing. I showed some of this in my race video, but I wanted to show a little bit more of my verbal download the night before the race. I don't think I said anything revolutionary, but it's always interesting to go back and watch, especially now that I have some distance from the whole experience. All right, it is officially the night before the marathon. It is almost 9 o'clock and the race starts at 8:15 tomorrow morning. So I have just under 12 hours before the race starts. I recorded a video before my very first marathon last year in Richmond. And so I thought I would do it again the night before just to give my thoughts. I wrote them down in my little notebook here so that I wouldn't forget. So yeah, these are just some thoughts about how I'm feeling the night before, things that are going through my head now that I've got everything laid out. The first thing, and this was the first thing last year too, was that I am pretty nervous about this. There is a whole lot of work that goes into something that leads to just one day. And, I was thinking about that when I was driving up to New York earlier today, that I've spent the last 17 weeks really dedicating myself to training for this one particular race. And it can feel like all or nothing. If the race doesn't go well, or if I don't finish it in the way that I hope I can, that it's sort of a failure. But the reality is that I am a better runner than I was 17 weeks ago. And I have learned a lot, and I have accomplished a lot of things. Now, do I have a medal for all those accomplishments? Not really. I did a half marathon, but other than that, I don't have any sort of certificate or award that says, yay, you did 17 weeks of training. So I think that that's where that comes from, that idea that you have to finish this race that you started. But I've heard it described as the race is actually kind of like the victory lap. So you've done all the hard work, you've put in the hours, the miles and miles and miles of running. And now the race is the victory lap, where you get to celebrate all of your accomplishments. So I'm going to try to focus on that and try to channel that nervousness into the second thing I'm feeling, which is excited. I wrote on my sheet here that there is so much you can't control when it comes to a marathon. So you can't control the weather. Right now it's looking like it's going to start cool tomorrow morning and then trend way, way upwards. We might be finishing at around 75 or 78 degrees. That's pretty warm for running, especially when you've been running for hours and hours. But I can't control that. I can't change the weather. So I just have to sort of look around and try to enjoy all the pieces as they fall into place, because this race is unique from any other race that I'll ever do. This is the first time I've done a race in New York, and I just want to try to enjoy the process. I don't want to be focused entirely on goal, 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 because I think that takes the fun and the learning out of it. So my hope is that tomorrow, regardless of whether the race itself goes well or not, that I can just stop for a few minutes and just look around and appreciate where I am. And that sort of leads into my third thing that I'm feeling, is that I'm grateful. And I say this at the end of every video, and I think I started saying it because I really wanted to have like a catchphrase for my videos, that I was grateful to run and grateful for today. But when I really stop and think about it, there's a lot of hardship in the world, and sometimes it can feel overwhelming. And I get the opportunity to take time out of my schedule, thanks to the generosity of my family, especially my wife, who is home with my kids this weekend, and I get to run a race. And I just am super grateful for that. And I'm also grateful that I'm physically able to do this. You know, I had an injury earlier this training cycle. I sort of injured my toe the other day. I'm feeling a little under the weather, but I still think I can go out there and compete and try to push myself. And I don't think that that will always be the case. In fact, I know that won't always be the case. And so when I have these opportunities, I really always have to take a step back and just remember that it's a privilege to be able to do things like this. And I need to be grateful and show gratitude. I'm not 100%, but I don't think there will ever be a time in my life when I feel 100% after a perfect training block leading into a marathon. So that's where I'm going to leave it tonight. I need to get some sleep. I'm pretty tired. I'm going to try to get up between 4:30 and 5, eat some breakfast, and then drive, park my car, get on the bus, and head to the start line. And I will see you in the morning. After finishing that filming, I called it a night and went to sleep. Surprising even myself, I slept pretty well the night before. I was somehow able to calm my nerves enough to fall asleep and got 6 hours and 54 minutes of quality sleep. Compared to my first marathon, where I had a restless night of sleep the night before the race with under 5 hours of actual sleep, this was a huge win. I got up, ate my carb-heavy breakfast of sourdough and more sourdough, and drove myself to the town of Bath, New York to catch the bus to the start line. Good morning. It is Sunday, October 5th. It is finally marathon morning. It is 7 o'clock. I just arrived in the town of Bath. The race actually starts about 5 minutes from here, but I have to catch a bus to the start line, so I'm gonna go find the bus right now. And I'm in my sweet throwaway sweatshirt, although if I can hang on to this sweatshirt, it's kind of cool. It's got SpongeBob and Patrick on it. My son was particularly tickled. I also just want to point out this super cool sign that my parents made for me. I don't even know if you can read that. But they can't be here this weekend to cheer me on, but they made me such a nice sign to say good luck. All right, I am as ready as I'm gonna be. Time to run this marathon. When I first walked up to the town square where the buses were loading and saw a super long line of people waiting to board, I was a bit nervous it was gonna take a while. Thankfully, the bus situation for the race was incredibly efficient. And despite the crowd of 100 plus people ahead of me, I was on a bus to the start in under 10 minutes. After a very short ride, we arrived at the start. I was able to use the bathroom with barely any wait and started my warm-up. Now is probably a good time to admit that despite this being my second marathon, I still don't really know what I'm doing in a warm-up. I generally know what to do, and you might even be fooled if you gave me a passing glance as you walked by, but the truth is, I don't really have a clue. Whatever I'm doing works generally for me, so for now, I'll keep that up. Okay, so after warming up, getting my customary watermelon goo down, taking in the good vibes and beautiful scenery, and hearing the national anthem, it was time to put up or shut up. The gun went off, and the crowd of a couple thousand runners crossed the start line into the first of 26.2 miles. Here we go, Wineglass Marathon! I was feeling pretty good at the start. I knew my goal was a sub 4-hour marathon, but admittedly still wasn't entirely sure it was possible when I started. I didn't start with the 4-hour pacer, but thought if I caught up to her, I would try to stick with her. Anyway, the first mile was mostly downhill, so I went off faster than I had hoped. I managed to cool it a bit once we got down the hill and we crossed into the town of Bath and reached the first mile marker in 9 minutes and 11 seconds. The next 2 miles went by rather uneventfully, but the temperature was slowly climbing. I made sort of a last-minute decision that in addition to the water I was carrying on my back, I would also carry a plastic bottle of electrolytes. For the first 6 miles of the race, I almost exclusively drank those. I'd experimented plenty with Element, my electrolyte of choice, and despite the bottle itself being annoying to carry, this was a good decision in retrospect. I was ticking off the miles pretty steadily and maintaining a pace of, give or take a few seconds, about 9 minutes per mile. I slowed down a little bit when I got
just past mile 5. Didn't realize there was a hill.
Yeah, it wasn't a big hill, but I had it in my head that the course was going to be pancake flat, bordering on downhill. And yes, The course was net downhill, but there were several rolling hills throughout the course I wasn't really expecting. Anyway, the pace remained pretty steady for miles 5 through 9, and I managed to keep my heart rate pretty steady too. It was hovering around 150 beats per minute, which is the very top of zone 2 or the very bottom of zone 3 for me. One thing I will say about this marathon is that there is not a ton of crowd support. There are pockets of support when you run through the little towns on the way from Bath to Corning, and there is an incredible group of supporters when you're running down the final street in Corning. But otherwise, it's mostly just the runners. For the first half of the race, there are some nice little pockets of runners all running about the same pace. As the race went on though, those pockets thinned out considerably. By the latter stages of the second half, there were times when it felt like I was running by myself. I'm getting a little bit ahead though. I remained steady through miles 10, 11, and 12. I wouldn't say the first half was easy by any means, but I really found a good rhythm as I ran. I have a distinct memory of seeing a mile marker and then running without looking at my watch for the next 6 to 7 minutes. By the time I was looking at my distance again, I was already 3/4 of the way to the next mile marker. That was a big mental boost. I finished mile 13 with an 8:57 mile and then got to
halfway in 1:58:51. See if I can keep this up.
This was pretty spot on for my pre-race goal. I thought if I could come through half in the 1:58 something range, I would set myself up for a real shot at going sub 4. There was one thing I couldn't control though, and that was the temperature. I put down my fastest mile of the day in mile 14, but by mile 15, with 11 miles to go, things started to get tough.
Through 15, starting to feel it. Temperature's climbing. Gotta stick with it.
I managed to keep the approximately 9-minute per mile pace up through mile 18 and even ran back-to-back 8:55 and 8:57 miles for mile 17 and mile 18. The conditions on the course, though, were catching up fast.
This is a particularly brutal stretch. It's warming up, and we're just right out here in the open on this asphalt. This is where it's tough. This is where it's tough.
Mile 19 was where things caught up to me. Call it the wall, call it a bonk, whatever it was rough.
19 miles. I'm hurting.
Mile 19 was 9 minutes, 13 seconds. Mile 20, 9 minutes, 22 seconds. Mile 21 was 9 minutes, 19 seconds. And mile 22 was 9 minutes, 29 seconds.
22 miles. I'm losing steam.
It only got slower from there. Mile 23 was 9 minutes, 29 seconds, and mile 24 was 9 minutes, 59 seconds. The heart rate was climbing too, despite the slower pace. It was at this point I knew I wasn't going to hit my goal of going sub 4.
24 miles. I've got like nothing left. I'm absolutely cooked. The heat is totally getting to me. Sub 4 is not gonna happen today. I'm still gonna try to push for my B goal under 4:05.
You can hear it in my voice. I was disappointed. I was so close. But I also knew I had given everything I had to the race so far. There was no way I was giving up now. I was still well on my way to a personal best. So even though mile 25 was a glacial 10 minutes, 15 seconds, I kept running. I hadn't stopped once to that point, and I wasn't stopping now. One foot in front of another, again and again and again. I got some sort of second or third or fourth win and bounded over the bridge into Corning. I came through mile 26 in 9 minutes, 38 seconds. I attempted to record my run down Main Street in Corning as I emptied the tank with an 8:30 per mile pace for the final quarter mile of the race, but I was so focused on running, I forgot to hit record. Thankfully, the race photographers captured some great shots as I crossed the finish line in 4 hours, 2 minutes, and 7 seconds. It was an 11-minute, 25-second personal best in the marathon. When I tell you I was absolutely wiped when I crossed the finish line, I mean it. Beyond exhausted. You can see it on my face.
California.
I did it. Don't know what the official time was, but definitely a PR.
I managed to get my medal, a super unique one made out of glass, after a few moments, mercifully got a cold sponge, and then basically sat down in the middle of everything to try to rehydrate. The temperature at the finish was 78 degrees, which is about 30 degrees warmer than my ideal racing temperature. I did finally manage to get up to get my official photo with my medal before diving into a plethora of snacks and drinks they had for the finishers.
I just got to shout out the Wineglass Marathon because they had Coca-Cola at the finish line, and it is hitting real good right now. Real good. So good.
After that, I took advantage of a free massage from a licensed massage therapist before catching the bus back to Bath to get my car.
And that is a wrap on the Wineglass Marathon 2025. I left it all out there. I did as good as I could have done, and I'm really proud with how it turned out. 26.2 miles, official time 4:02:07. Smashed my B goal, missed the sub 4 by just 2 minutes, but you know what? I think I'll be back.
Well, you heard it there just hours after finishing a pretty grueling race. I think I'll be back. So now that I have some space between the marathon and now, what am I thinking? Oh yeah, I'll be back. Definitely for one marathon in 2026, and maybe for two. We'll see. As for wrapping up this particular series, I had a blast putting it together. The training was hard and especially difficult during a very hot summer in Virginia. The race was hard and especially difficult during an unseasonably warm day. But I'm proud of the effort I put in. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank a few people before officially closing out the Wineglass 359 series. Thank you to the Wineglass Marathon for a great race. It was exceptionally well organized, and as with all races, it wouldn't be possible without the numerous volunteers. Thank you to my family and friends who were so supportive of my running. Thank you to my parents for their constant love and for frequently checking in on my training progress. Thank you to my two wonderful kids who love me despite the very sweaty running clothes I bring through the door in the summer. And in all seriousness, I hope that I inspire them just a little bit with my running. And the biggest thank you ever to my wife, Maureen. Without her, it would be next to impossible to train for and run a marathon. From her endless support of my many, many training runs and watching the kids when I'm gone for hours at a time, to her patience whenever I complain about a phantom injury or illness, I'm so incredibly grateful to have such a loving partner. And if you've made it this far, you're a real one. Thanks for sticking with me through this video and this series. I'm now over 100 subscribers on the channel. Can I get to 1,000? It seems impossible, but who knows? So what's next for me? Well, more running, that's for sure. I raced a very strong half marathon in Richmond just 6 weeks after this marathon, and I'm making a full race video and breakdown on that coming soon. And before I know it, I'll be back into marathon training to chase that elusive sub 4-hour goal. For now though, I'll close this video as I always do by saying that I'm grateful to run and grateful for today. Thanks for watching. See you soon.